2,000 families. That's a big number. That's who could be targeted this very weekend in a planned crackdown on undocumented immigration. Two senior Department of Homeland Security officials tell NBC News that nationwide immigration raids that were postponed 3 weeks ago are now scheduled to kick off on Sunday.
The raids are expected to be carried out by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, in these 10 major cities. We should note these locations were previously scheduled targets, and of course plans could change before Sunday. The New York Times reports the raids will be conducted over multiple days and will include something called collateral deportations. It adds, quote, agents have expressed apprehension about arresting babies and young children.
Joining us now, former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, John Sandwig. John, these raids, we've known about them for weeks, so immigration groups have obviously spoken to these communities and these families, so they're prepared. Given that they've had time to prepare, can the government actually get what they're looking for in terms of the raids?
I mean, you expect they'll get some people, but you're exactly right, Stephanie. I've never seen anything like this. The government has announced with great specificity that they're going to be conducting operations in the streets and even identified the cities where those operations will be conducted. There's a very high likelihood that the people who would be targets of these operations are not going to be where ICE thinks they're going to be when they go to those houses to find them. And I think even more concerning is that if there are any bad guys in that list of targets who intend to do ICE officers harm, they now have plenty of warning and plenty of opportunity to get ready for ICE agents to show up at their door.
John, let's talk about what the new acting director of Citizenship and Immigration Services, Ken Cuccinelli, said yesterday about this plan.
We're not going to say when operational elements are going to roll out, and Matt Albence is in control of that at ICE, career man, and
are they going to happen?
To it. They're absolutely going to happen. There's approximately 1 million people in this country with removal orders.
All right, if 1 million people are targeted to be removed, what does that process look like? Because we've got immigration detention centers, obviously, already overcrowded. I mean, literally what happens in raids like this? Do you take people and somehow they get put immediately onto a plane or a bus to leave the country?
Not at all, Ellie. I mean, that's a concern here. So right now, ostensibly, ICE has been doing targeting, identifying who it is they want to arrest, and identifying addresses where they can find them. So the plan would be, let's say, if it begins Sunday or Monday, early in the morning, they go banging on doors and apprehend those individuals. When they reference collateral arrest, that means they're going to arrest everybody they find in the house who is undocumented. The big concern here is you find a family unit who I think is, per the reporting, that's going to be their primary target, parents with children. They apprehend those individuals. It's not a quick process just to load them on a plane in their home within hours. They need to detain those people. We've already seen and heard about the tremendous problems the agency's having with the detention of children. So now you're going to have parents with their children locked up in facilities that were not designed for them. And then it's a question of consolidating those individuals, loading them on a plane, probably back to Central America. I think you could expect that these parents with their children will be detained for at least 2 to 3, 4 weeks, if not longer, as the ICE kind of goes through its processes of getting them out of the country.
What rights do these undocumented immigrants have? So let's say ICE enters their home. What do they do?
Well, technically, it depends on the particular situation. I think a lot of the advocacy groups are advising individuals that when ICE comes to their door in this context, it is a consensual encounter, meaning they do not have a warrant from a federal judge authorizing them to enter the house forcibly. So a lot of times they knock on the door and they use their powers of persuasion to allow them to come into the house. I will tell you, having gone on these operations, ICE is very effective at getting access to the house. And if individuals, typically don't let them in the house, ICE will simply surveil the house and wait for them to leave where they apprehend them. In terms of their rights post-arrest, frankly, they have very little rights. Most of these people, a lot of them probably have gone through the immigration courts in absentia, meaning something bureaucratically happened or potentially they intentionally failed to show up at the immigration court. A deportation order was issued. Once that deportation order is in ICE's hands, the individual has very little ability to challenge it.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.